important conference. And actually, as a historian, I am going to speak about the historical concept of the, sorry, I am just opening my slide now. So I'm going to speak about how this gender equality was taking part throughout history, because usually we consider the concept of gender equality something very modern, right? That always in history the people were discriminating women, and the women didn't have any rights, and something happened only during the modern times, and we started appreciating women. We started talking about equality. But when we are talking about Islam, we try to use the term of the equity, mainly. So this is or the perception. But as a historian, I always try to pay attention how the woman issues or the position of women was taking part in different civilizations. So today I am going to present to you a very short overview of how women were treated in the most important civilizations, most important early civilizations like Mesopotamian civilization, Egyptian, Chinese, Indian, and Greek Roman. So this is going to be very short, the explanation. And after that, I will give to you some examples from the early Islamic history. So, but when I am going to talk about these civilizations, I am going to pay attention to religion, because religion played an essential part in the societies of the early civilizations. And also, as I mentioned to you, I am going to speak to you about development of the issue of gender equality throughout centuries. So we will start from Mesopotamian civilization. As you can see from, I'm sure all of you have some general idea about these earlier civilizations, and the Mesopotamian civilization was among the earliest civilizations which was happening around 5,000 years ago. And if we read the Quran in the ayats like the Babil and the others like the Ibrahim alayhi salam, most of the prophets were coming to this Mesopotamian civilization. So here, what I'm writing next to the map I'm writing is about what the modern historians are writing about this Mesopotamian civilization. We just consider them agrarian cultures. There were the different governments were ruling. Sumerians, it starts from the Sumerians, then the Akkadians. What mentioned in the Quran is about the Babil, is the Babylonian civilization. And the Assyrians also we know from the Sirah, from the earlier history, at-Tabari's history also. So how we know about this Mesopotamian civilization? Because they were having the first writing system, cuneiform, and all of the historical works of the old times are mentioning that their religion was polytheism. Also, although we know from Quran that they were having also a lot of the prophets coming to them. So it means if the prophets were coming, they were bringing monotheism to the environment of polytheism. So when we are talking about this long span of the history, we are talking about 2, 3, or even the 4,000 years. So we cannot just generalize everything as only it was happening like only one thing. So as a unique. So mainly they were having polytheism, but monotheism was also coming. So now we are moving how the women were seen in this civilization. So what I found from my readings that the women in Mesopotamian civilization enjoyed some rights, such as the right for owning property, and also were able to get divorced when they had a solid reason. But they didn't have any political rights and also no rights to get education. But what is interesting in Mesopotamian civilization, also like in Greek civilization, they were having not only gods, but goddesses. Goddess means the female god. So, and also they were having female priests. But also they had this habit of selling their daughters to the temple to have the temple or the sacred prostitution who were working in the temple. So this is what I found about the position of women written in the textbooks, but also what is interesting, this needs to be mentioned, that when we are looking at the earliest part of the civilization, like in Sumerian time, is the first Mesopotamian culture, women were having moral rights. So when civilization was at the beginning and there was not much development, not much the development of the buildings, because we know about Mesopotamian civilization that it was having the high buildings and very sophisticated cities. So at the earlier age, when it was the original, when the people were more united, women were having more the rights, and they were having the property, and they were running business along with their husband, become priests, scribes, physicians, and act as judges and the witness in the court. So archaeologists and historians speculate that as Mesopotamian cultures grew in wealth and power, strong patriarchal structure gave more rights to men than women. So it's why I mentioned in the beginning that when we are talking at the ancient history, it was not always, we cannot see it as having only one nature. It was changing always, and it was very flexible. And what type of the flexible, I will generalize at the end, after giving the examples from other civilizations. Now we are moving to the Egyptian civilization. So this is also the ancient civilization started around 5,000 years ago, and it was having strong monarchical authority and established and was founded around the river of Nile in modern day of Egypt, as we can see from the name of the Egyptian civilization. And this civilization is also known for the building and the developments and the engineering skills and intellectual and cultural activities. So what about women in this civilization? So from the Quran, we know about women in this civilization, which are mentioned in the Quran are Zuleha, wife of Aziz, and what the rights she was having. And also we know about the wife of Pharaoh, Asiya. And also we know some information about minority women in this civilization, because the Musa alayhi salam's family were minorities. They were Jews living here. So the Musa alayhi salam's sister and mother, what rights they were having, how they were communicating, so we can understand something from these ayats of the Quran. So in Egyptian civilization, as historians mention, the women were having equal legal rights with men, and the property and inheritance remained in the hands of the woman after getting married. So, and also they were engaging in business. Upper class women, they were also working as the priests, and also sometimes also there were some queens as the pharaoh. Like we have the examples of the Sobek Nofro and also Hatshepsut and Nefertiti. Nefertiti is very well known. So it means the women were also ruling, but when they were ruling, interestingly, they were called His Majesty, not the Her Majesty. So they became already this can be understood as general also, like in Arabic language, right? So in Indian civilization, so we have not much information about earlier Indian civilization. We have only this picture of the dancing girl from the city of Mohenjo-daro, which you can see on the right side of the slide. So this about Indian civilization, we know that it is their religion is the Hinduism. They have the caste system. It means not each caste is going to have the same concept of woman, but what is interesting, again, like in Mesopotamian civilization, at the earlier age of civilization, women in India enjoyed high status in society, but later it was totally changing. So at the earlier times, they were having opportunity to attain high intellectual and spiritual standard. They had the freedom to, in public. They were able to marry if his husband dies. But later it will not happen like this. And most of the traditions were also in the Indian civilization. When the husband was dying, the wife was also buried alive together with husband. But women started being discriminated against since the later Vedic period in education and other rights and facilities. And then started child marriage, widow burning, and the purda and the polygamy. Also, they have the polygamy, but it was not happening at the earlier age. Later, women became deprived from education and they became second-class citizens, cannot go out. They became the husband's property. But upper class continued enjoying some rights, but it was not like in the beginning. So now I am giving general idea about Chinese civilization. Again, among the oldest civilizations, they were, of course, their religion is Buddhism, but there was also the philosophical school, which is called the 100 schools. 100 schools period is around the 100 during this time, around 300 years, they were having a lot of philosophical schools were happening, and the schools which are continuing until today are Confucianism, Taoism, and legalism here. And their approach towards women is very interesting. So especially I am bringing the example here from Confucianism. They discuss gender in terms of yin, so is the soft, tender, passive, and yang. So soft, tender, passive is for female, and the yang, hard, active, and dominating. This is something like we pay attention to when we talk about equity, we are paying attention about this nature of woman, what is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how we are created in different, into the genders, not the same. So these differences are a part of natural order of universe, not part of social institutions artificially created by human being. The Confucian classic of the Book of Rights stressed the value of segregation even within the home. So Confucianism is talking about segregation because of nature of women, because they are soft, tender. It's why they have to be segregated and protected. Houses should be divided into an inner and outer section, according to the Confucianism, because they are talking about segregation even within the home, with the woman staying in the inner part in order to be protected. So in the book of the Poetry, it's mentioned that women should not take part in public affairs. They should devote themselves to tending silkworms and weaving. So this is then later, unfortunately, the woman started being seen as a source of the problem for women. New customs developed related to the beauty, like the foot binding, and also the cult of the widow chastity if the husband dies. So widow supposed to, they were not given permission to remarry, and also the childless widows also were given permission to commit suicide. So there were such kind of the practices, but it is not happening always, but I am giving just general examples. Now we are moving to the last civilization before Islamic. This is Greek-Roman civilization. So Greek-Roman civilization becomes the center of the world by the 200 years before the Common Era. It means 2,221 years ago. So what we are having today as modern civilization, so all the foundations of modern civilization were laid down during this time, during the time of the Greek-Roman civilization. So in the map, you can see in the orange color what the Greek civilization was covering, including some of the parts in North Africa, if you can see. And now this is Roman civilization in the pink color, and Roman civilization was having the bigger coverage. So what about women in this Greek-Roman civilization? So it's the Greek-Roman civilization we consider about the talkings about that is the source of democracy, liberalism, human rights. But what is interesting related to the woman, that in Greek-Roman civilization, only free men could be citizens of the city-state and entitled to full protection of the law. So it's why the free men mean men, not women, unfortunately, but it will happen again at the last stage during the Roman civilization time, because during the Greek time, earlier time, women were having more rights than later. So Roman law was under the absolute control of her husband. So woman is under the absolute control of the husband, who had ownership of her and her properties. He could divorce her if she went out in public without a veil. A husband had the power of life and death over his wife, just as he did his children. Women were prohibited to speak in public by law. Later, some rights for education were given, but still, women were not having much the rights in the Greek-Roman civilization. I see it's why the feminism started, because when they inherited, modern civilization inherited some the concepts which were coming from the Greek-Roman civilization, there was no such kind of the concepts related to women. So it's why there was a need in modern times, in modern civilization. It's why they started talking about the women's rights, and it's how feminism started out of the necessity in their society. So let me conclude for this is the first part before going to the Islamic one. So the important point is that the women in the early civilizations had faced many challenges related to their economic and social status, but their status differed in various civilizations. So it's not the same. In Mesopotamians, they were having more rights in the Greek-Roman civilization, for example. But still, women belong to the household. In Judaism and later in Christianity, women were advised not to be seen in public. In the rabbinic ideal, women are not to be found in the marketplace, where the risk to their chastity was considered enormous. So now this is what I wanted to tell here. So we cannot just easily say that the ancient civilizations were discriminating women. So we are not talking about, we cannot just close the eye to the historical concept, historical context, and say women were discriminating, because during that time, protection of women was the issue. The wars were happening, and the selling of women for slavery was also very common in these civilizations. So this is one of the reasons why such kind of rules were happening in order to protect women also. This is not only related to discrimination. So early civilizations the agrarian societies where all physical works were done by men, because it was the responsibility, social responsibility. Later, women were deprived even from the basic human rights. But unfortunately, so the maqsad of the seclusion of women was for their maslaha, for protection of their security. But later, women became deprived even from basic human rights, because it went for the objective reason behind their seclusion was misunderstood, and they started being discriminated. Women lost their social status and reputation gradually at the peak of civilizations. Moral rights, but they were having moral rights at the early stage of civilizations. So it may happen because of the corruption, this intellectual corruption and the scholarly corruption, or can be the corruption of the minds. So or can be also lack of the good governance during this time. So now I am just comparing these earlier civilizations with the Islam, how Islam was changing this situation. So now this was the situation of the world. You know about what did happen in the Arabia also when Islam came. So Islam came in order to change the situation regarding the status of women. So here I mentioned to you that I start from the left side here. High class of women enjoyed many rights, but the commoners women were not enjoying any rights in ancient civilizations. So, but Islam brought not only equity and equality between men and women alone. So when I am mentioning equality, I am talking about the ibadah issues here and the in front of the God, and also so not only talking about the equity and equality between men and women alone, but Islam brought on also equality of all human beings, regardless of their social classes. So this was the huge change. This was the revolutionary change in humanity, that it was not only the equalizing or giving equity between men and women, but also giving equality to everyone, regardless of their race, regardless of the social status, educational background. Of course, the women and men, the women are going to have also very high status under Islam, if even the highest level of the society were elevated to the level of the highest rank during that time. So number two, they were having illogical and harmful practices in ancient civilizations due to the perceptions of beauty, like the foot binding, like in Chinese civilization, or the burying alive the wife together with the husband if husband dies. But Islam brought dignity, rational practices which are beneficial, and also the sources of bringing happiness and joy to the families, to the entire society, regardless they are a man or woman. So, and also in the ancient civilizations, woman is considered as a property of husband or a subject of joy, like the prostitution I mentioned to you. Temple prostitutions were happening, right? But in Islam, woman is a free human being with rights and responsibilities and with dignity. So these are the general, my observation, what in which the parts of the status of women Islam was changing. Now, these are the consequences of this change, what Islam was bringing. So I'm going to, if I still have some time, I will bring only few. Yes, I have some time, around 5 minutes. So I'm going to bring to you only few examples from the early times of Islam. So this is what is this? I am reading here some kind of the summary from the studies of the status of women in early Islamic civilization. So I found that there is a long line of women scholars and activists who attained high positions and were renowned for their excellence as scholars, social workers, public figures, educators during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and during the next generations, when Islamic civilization was flourishing, like in other civilizations, when Islamic civilization was flourishing. So here, maybe I didn't attend the first part of the conference because it was too early for Turkey because of the time difference. Maybe some of the examples were mentioned, but still repetition is good in order to remember the names. I'm repeating these names again. So in the field of economic justice and the judges, we have the name of the woman from the time of Muhammad ﷺ, like Samra bint Nuhayk al-Asadiyya, who was a very well-known woman in Medina, and Muhammad ﷺ appointed her as the administrator or muhtasib of commercial law in the bazaar, because actually Muhammad ﷺ used to consult her in many matters. So when Muhammad ﷺ decided that in bazaar there are some mischiefs are happening, like during the sales time, so he decided to initiate the new position called the muhtasib in order to have as an administrator of the city, and she was appointed and by the Muhammad ﷺ. And she continued that position, being in that position during the time of the first two caliphs, the Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anha and also Umar radiallahu anha time. But when she died during the time of the Umar radiallahu anha, Ash-Shifa Layla, or the Ash-Shifa is the nickname, the real name is the Layla bint Abdullah, was appointed by Umar radiallahu anha as a muhtasib. So you see, all this is some kind of the position like Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar, right? But he is more some kind of the worldly position in order to check all the happenings in the city who is going to be discriminated, especially related to the commerce at that time. As you know, the Medina was Islamic, at that time, Islamic State was the center of the commerce. So two women were appointed to this position of the Muhtasib. And it was the person who was appointing the first time the woman was Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and this position for the second time was given also to another woman, the Ashifa. In education, also what I found the very interesting things that the two names I am mentioning here, Aisha bint Sa'd ibn al-Waqqas. She was the well-learned in Islamic sciences to the point that a number of famous jurists and scholars on hadith, including Imam Malik, Hakim ibn Utaybah, and Ayub al-Sahtiani were her students. And also another name is Sayyidah Nafisa bint Hassan ibn Abi Talib. So this is another the well-known scholar. And also in historical works, I found that the Ibn Hajar studied under 53 women. So among his teachers were 53 of them were women, while Al-Sahawi had ijaza or license to teach from 68 women scholars, and As-Suyuti from 33 women, the female scholars. It means during the early time of Islam, there were a lot of female scholars, and they were going to the mosque, they were teaching there, and the men were free to sit in front of the women and learn from them. And they were very well educated. So these are some examples from the early Islamic history. And actually, this was not only, it did not stop at the early age of Islam. When the Islamic civilization flourished, the women now, especially from the royal families, they are known for their the public donations, like the Queen Zubaydah, wife of Harun Rashid. She did the public work activities, such as building of the guest houses and the wells along the Hajj route from Baghdad to Mecca, because she went to perform Hajj, and she was surprised to see that from such a wealthy, the capital city of the Abbasid Caliphate is from Baghdad until Mecca. There is no any facilities for women if women wanted to perform Hajj. So she was the first person who paid attention to this one as a female, as a Muslimah, and she decided to spend all of the wealth in order to make the Hajj, the journey of women, easier and more comfortable. And she spent over 2 million dinars improving Mecca's water supply. So everyone was benefiting from what she did. And also we know examples of the Fatima al-Fihri from the Fes, who founded the first university in the world, which is called the Al-Qarawiyyin University in 9th century, 859. So then it did not complete such kind of the public activities of women. We have many examples from the Ottoman, the Sultanate, from the Osmanli Sultanate, and I am bringing here only the name of the Hurrem Sultan, who was brought as a slave girl to Roxalan and accepted Islam and became the wife of the Sulaiman al-Qanuni. So what she did, she founded a number of welfare institutions, including a mosque complex in Istanbul called the Hasiki Kulliyesi, consisting of a mosque, madrasa, school, and imarat, or public kitchen, and also chifta hammam. So this is the chifta is the double, and the hammam is the, as you know, this is from Arabic, the bath house for the public for free, with sections for one section for men, another one is for women, 2 schools and women's hospital in Istanbul, 4 schools in Mecca, and a mosque in Jerusalem. So this is one of the pictures from the complex. So this is in front of Hagia Sophia, between Hagia Sophia and also the Sultan Ahmed, or the Blue Mosque in Istanbul. If you visit Istanbul, you can see this is the Kulliya, and it still stands and still the functions until today. So examples from the science in medicine, we know Rufaida bint Sa'id, who was having hospital during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, used to go to the wars together with Layla, who was also muhtasib, as Shifa mentioned her name. So they were taking part in the battles in order to take care of the wounded, the soldiers. In science, we have what I found the names because I didn't check the sources in Arabic many, but what I found in English, these are the names in science. Sufaita al-Mahamali from the 10th century, from Baghdad, excelled in mathematics. And also we know the name of the Labana of Cordova from Muslim Spain, also the very well-known scholar in mathematics. In astronomy, this is the image of the, not the picture, okay, because there was no taking picture, no selfies, nothing at that time yet, because I am talking about 10th century, Maryam al-Astrolabi. So this Maryam, she did the best astrolabe during her time, and she was from Aleppo, and she was known for all of her scientific innovations, especially in technology, and especially in making astrolabe and also in astronomy. So this is what we can conclude from the facts. As the historian, I am just throwing the facts, right? It's for the other people to make the conclusions, but here I am giving some conclusions. So what we can say, that women participated in public along with men and had the equal rights at early stages of civilizations. But women gradually lost their social status and rights at the peak of civilizations. And also we can also relate this one to the late stage of Islamic civilization too. So because we started having difficulties related to the position of women, starting from the 16th, 17th centuries, right? It's today we started talking about, more about the human rights, but it depends also from country to other country. Again, we cannot generalize here. So thus the issue of gender equality is not a modern phenomenon in human history, but it is a manifestation of the absence of good governance in societies and states. So this is what I understood from the findings, some of the examples from history as a historian. And thank you very much for listening to me. I think I took a lot of the time, and sorry if